Tater tots, schmater tots, specifically the ones from Taco Bell, are a little too greasy, but they are very delicious. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be reviewing The Amazing Spider-Man number 59. Spoiler warning ahead, we will be diving into the contents of the comic book itself, so if you haven't read it yourself, just as a heads up. And if you're enjoying this video at any point, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's jump right into this comic book. To read off a brief summary from the comic book itself, because we are a few issues into this current story arc, so we will need some background. The comic book states, the newest crime lord of New York City, Tombstone, is about to stand trial, and his daughter, Janice, has betrayed him by agreeing to testify against him. Unable to let this stand, if he wants to keep power, Tombstone crossed the uncrossable line and set out to off his own flesh and red sauce. While Janice was able to hold her own for a while, Tombstone soon overpowered her. Fortunately, Spider-Man had realized Tombstone's plan and crashed into the scene just in time to save Janice. The ensuing fight has brought the three of them across half of the city and doesn't look like it's going to end soon. Alright, now before we do dive directly into the comic book itself, that summary that the comic book itself gives us is kinda whack, right? It states, the newest crime lord of New York City, Tombstone. Now, he definitely isn't the newest crime lord. Technically, they aren't lying. This is true because previously the crime lord was Janice, Tombstone's own daughter, but this specific volume run did originally start off with Tombstone being the crime lord of New York City before he handed off the mantle over to, his daughter. After Tombstone did betray his own daughter and became the crime lord of New York City, true, he is the newest crime lord, but I feel like this brief description is definitely stretching this out. Like, since Tombstone was the crime lord to begin with, so I feel like we're really stretching that truth. Anyways, let's begin with the comic book itself, ladies and gentlemen. With the previous issue leaving off with Tombstone having Spider-Man in a hug lock, running out the side of the building, breaking the window, both of them are now in freefall. Since Tombstone does have Spider-Man in a hug lock, he's the one taking the main blunt force once they do reach the ground. It looks immensely painful, with Spider-Man taking the blunt force of that freefall, with Tombstone getting cushioned over Spider-Man's body. With Spider-Man disoriented and having red sauce leak from his body, Tombstone grabs a hold of Spider-Man's throat with the intention of choking him out. Tombstone tells him, "Should've stayed out of this. It's between me and Janice." As he finishes his sentence, he looks up to see Janice Lincoln running into the subway tunnels to try to make her escape. While Tombstone is distracted looking up, Spider-Man manages to knee Tombstone in the huevos, while also giving him a blunt force attack on his nose, which would typically knock out a normal human being, but because it's Tombstone, it only damages him a little bit. Enough though to keep him in the fight. While Spider-Man is getting his jabs in, he grabs a hold of Tombstone and tosses him off him, while saying, "Leave her alone." Spider-Man is trying to get up from being disoriented. He's trying to tell Lonnie, "No one is getting offed today, Lonnie." As Spider-Man is orienting himself, he looks up only to see Lonnie's already making chase into the subway tunnel right after Janice. Now being in the subway tunnels, Janice runs after a train that looks to be ready to leave, with the doors closing. She yells, "Wait! Hold the doors!" She manages to make it all the way to the doors right before they close, only to have Tombstone grab onto her hair one more time from the previous issue. So before Janice manages to make it into the train itself, Tombstone tells her, "I wanted this to be clean, but I can do it messy." Spider-Man, after receiving a pummeling from Tombstone, he manages to grab a light post from the street level, go down into the subway tunnel, and jab Tombstone in the back as he's holding on to Janice Lincoln. This causes Janice to break free, go into the subway, as Spider-Man is just hammering away at Tombstone's back. Tombstone, now on his knees, looking at his daughter managing to get away in the subway car. Spider-Man's holding onto Tombstone's coat while he's on his knees, telling him, "She's gone. Let it go, Lonnie." Very persistent though, Tombstone manages to swipe at Spider-Man, trying to catch him off guard, and he runs at the subway car trying to open the doors before it goes away. But with the light post still in his hand, Spider-Man slams it up against Tombstone's neck, causing him to land on the ground, while Spider-Man's telling him, "No, stay down." But Tombstone still won't give up, swiping at Spider-Man's feet, causing him to land on the ground, and Tombstone runs after the train car before it tries getting away. Tombstone manages to jump and land on the very last train cart, with the intentions of getting into the train. But just as Tombstone is very devoted in offing his own daughter, Spider-Man is also devoted in stopping him. Spider-Man jumps on Tombstone's back, pummels at his head, telling him to let go. This causes Tombstone to break free of the grip on the train cart, causing both Spider-Man and him him to land on the train tracks behind the train. Effectively, Janice Lincoln manages to escape, so all that's left is Spider-Man and Tombstone on the train tracks. Tombstone looks over at Spider-Man and tells him, "Alright, you have my attention." Spider-Man replies, "Let her go, Lonnie. It's over." Another train goes right in between them as Tombstone tells Spider-Man, "It'll never be over." But Spider-Man tries pleading with Tombstone, saying, "She's your daughter." But Lonnie isn't listening. He tells him it doesn't matter. So Spider-Man, covered in his own body red sauce, tells him, "Okay then, we finish it here," with Tombstone agreeing to his terms. Another train goes in between them, obscuring Spider-Man from Tombstone. As it goes past, Tombstone lunges at Spider-Man, telling him, "Let's finish it." This commences a full-on fist fight, with both of them trying to overpower each other. Spider-Man effectively gets a good series of punches into Tombstone's gut, causing him to get on his knees. With easy access to the rocks underneath him, Tombstone grabs a handful and throws it at Spider-Man's face, giving him the opportunity to run up and lunge at Spider-Man, telling him, "You never could fight dirty." Spider-Man replies with, "I'll make an exception." He holds on Tombstone's hands and squishes them, crushing them, causing Tombstone to yell in pain. And Spider-Man tells him, "Let's see you make a fist now." With the best of his abilities, Tombstone tries making a fist and he throws one at Spider-Man, only for Spider-Man to dodge it, causing Tombstone to hit the wall behind him. Since he threw that punch with the intentions of having it land on Spider-Man and instead it hit the wall behind him, and having his hands already crushed, this hurt Tombstone immensely, causing him to yell in pain once again. Another train goes right by them. Spider-Man, having the advantage in the situation, he kicks Tombstone into the side of the train as it's going by, causing him to slam into the train and back on the ground. Tombstone, now fully covered in his own red sauce, looks over at Spider-Man and questions, "Feel better?" Spider-Man walks up to Tombstone, grabs him by his suit, and tells him, "I'm not doing this for me. You have to stop Lonnie." Having Spider-Man in close proximity, Tombstone tries throwing a few more punches at Spider-Man, only to have him easily dodge them. In response to that, Spider-Man tells him, "I said stop," as Spider-Man throws two very good punches at his face. Spider-Man then follows it up with kneeing Tombstone in the gut, causing him to go flying into the train tracks. As y'all can guess, a train is coming his way. Spider-Man yells in concern, "Lonnie!" He tries running at Tombstone. He holds on to him, throws him off the train tracks, causing Spider-Man to get hit by the train, having him land right next to Tombstone. The train very well could have ended Tombstone, but Spider-Man wasn't gonna allow that. So in an effort to try to save Tombstone, he ended up receiving the impact of the train, causing Spider-Man to be fully out of the fight at this point. After being saved, Tombstone gets up, looks over at Spider-Man and tells him, "That was dumb." Tombstone grabs a big piece of concrete with the intention of finishing Spider-Man then and there, and tells him, "Now you're gonna meet God." And for what? Spider-Man fully out of the fight. Tombstone, with a piece of concrete in his hand with the intentions of finishing off Spider-Man, tells him, "Janice is gone, like you said. You already saved her. Should have walked away." With the last bit of consciousness that Spider-Man has, he tells Tombstone, "I wasn't just trying to save her, Lonnie. You were gonna off your daughter. I was saving." He doesn't finish his sentence and completely goes unconscious. Tombstone looks at Spider-Man for a good moment. He drops the piece of concrete and starts walking away, leaving Spider-Man there on his own. But Tombstone also received a fair share of blows, so he doesn't make it too far before he also collapses right next to Spider-Man, causing Tombstone to also go unconscious right next to Spider-Man. And that's when the comic book leaves us on the to be continued, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, thoughts, comments, concerns. What do we think about the comic? Did we like it? Did we hate it? What is up? This is probably easily the best comic book in this entire volume run in terms of just the action that goes down. I mean, the entire comic book itself is just pure non-stop action until both of these characters just fall down unconscious. On that regard, I enjoyed it. I always want some action to go down. Typically, this writer gives us action that just falls flat. It never goes anywhere. The action starts, but then immediately just ends. Nothing really good happens. But this issue actually gives us full-on brutal action. It would have been pretty great to have like internal monologues over what Spider-Man is currently thinking during each different situation in this comic. I want to know how much he's struggling. I want to know how much he's strategizing. That would have been nice. Maybe once we change writers, we'll get some good internal monologues during fights, especially. But as of right now, we just get a full-on fight throughout the entire comic book. No monologues, but the fight itself is pretty good. Spider-Man had already received some pretty brutal blows blows from the previous issues, manages to cushion Tombstone's fall, and still gets up to try to save Janice Lincoln from her own father. As far as Spider-Man goes, I think he was best portrayed in this comic. We didn't get a single moment where Spider-Man got belittled, so that's right off the bat really good. This was probably one of the only few comics where Spider-Man actually stands on business and deals with the situation, even though he's already leaking a lot of red sauce from his body. As far as the Spider-Man character goes, he was very well represented in this comic. As for Tombstone, I feel like the same thing goes for him. He was pretty well represented in the comic. Although, as cold-blooded as he is, I really was thinking he was just gonna off Spider-Man at the very end. Maybe he just didn't have the strength to do it. Maybe he just thought, okay, you know, you won, you saved my daughter, I understand what you're going with. But even so, Tombstone is a very cold, red sauce kind of guy. Having him decide not to just finish off Spider-Man at the end just kind of seemed weird. Especially with the most brutal kind of fight and tactics that he was going with. Tombstone definitely seemed very hard-headed from this issue and the previous issue on the fact that he was gonna finish off his daughter. He tried so many times to try to break into that train to get her, but it was definitely very relieving to see Spider-Man make a stand and multiple times just smack Tombstone, telling him like, no dude, we're not doing that. Tombstone definitely was persistent and he was gonna continue getting his goal achieved. The fact that he didn't finish off Spider-Man at the end, well, hit or miss. It could be a hit or miss for anyone. Like I said, maybe he just didn't have the strength, the gas, the juice to just do one more whack at Spider-Man's head or something. All in all, I thought I was gonna dread going into this comic and, you know, reading through it, but it was actually genuinely pretty cool. I don't say that very often with this current volume. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're fine to read, sometimes they're a dread to read, but this one was actually enjoyable. I would have loved Spider-Man's monologue and knowing what he's thinking throughout the fight. That definitely would have made it more juicy, but what we got was pretty good. Anyways, that is all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know if you enjoyed the comic book in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video as well, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace!